Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm your host, Suzi Lula. As a spiritual therapist for over 20 years, I have the honor and privilege of ushering women and mothers just like you on a journey from simply surviving to powerfully thriving. I also have the honor of raising our son, Will, who is now a young adult, with my longtime partner, Jamie, so I'm right there on the journey with you. Consider this your personal sanctuary, your space to meet your heart, embrace your messy, and come home to your most authentic, extraordinary self. My hope is that you leave resourced and inspired because you are here to shine. Welcome to Permission to Thrive. Hello, and welcome everyone. If you are new to our community, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. I have big news, a big announcement for you all. Throughout the year, I teach different online courses, all assisting you to create a truly thriving life, to create the life that you came here to live, to create the life of your dreams. And this September 25th and 26th, I'll be teaching a free 2-day masterclass called Healing the Heart of the Inner Child. So unhealed trauma, unprocessed wounding from our childhood, it gets stuck and lodged in our bodies, in our emotions. And that unhealed material keeps us from truly thriving in your life. To the degree that you have unhealed, unprocessed energy material within you is to the degree that you are holding yourself back from living a truly thriving life. And so over this 2-day period, I'm going to guide you to heal that which is keeping you stuck and free you to step into the thriving life that you are here to live. So join me September 25th and 26th. It's free. The link with all the information is in the show notes. And now sit back, relax, and receive the best of today's episode of Permission to Thrive. Much love, everyone. Enjoy. Welcome, everyone. I have such a special episode today. You are going to receive so much from these amazing guests, Susanna Peace-Lavelle and Cindy Kaplan, both of whom are soul psychology coaches through me and advocates in their own worlds for parents, for women, to dive deep into the world of caring for ourselves so that we can live rich, thriving, flourishing lives as women, as mothers. And so I'm going to give you a formal introduction of each of them, and then we're going to dive in. I love these two individuals, and I know that you are going to love them as well and receive so much from their experience and expertise in this area as well. So Cindy Kaplan. Cindy has dedicated over 25 years to supporting parents and families as a therapist and coach, grounded in conscious parenting and soul psychology. She authored the memoir, Free Fall, One Mother's Journey Raising a Child with Special Needs. And she's contributed to the anthology, Becoming Brave Together. Cindy is a proud mom of 3 young adults, including a daughter with multiple disabilities. She's passionate about parenting, personal growth, yoga, dogs, stillness, and laughter with friends. She resides in Newton, Massachusetts with her husband, 2 children, and 2 ridiculous dogs. So welcome, Cindy, and I'm going to just jump right into Susanna, and then I'll give you both a moment to speak. Susanna Peace-Lavelle, have known Susanna for many years. So excited to have both of you here. Received her BA from UC Berkeley and is an author of Your True Self is Enough. Lessons learned on my journey parenting a child with autism. She's a speaker, disability rights advocate, as well as both a certified professional life coach and soul psychology coach. She is dedicated to the health and wellness of disability families everywhere. This is also her lived experience raising a teenage daughter with myriad disabilities and diagnoses, including ASD, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and severe food allergies. So this is their formal introduction, letting you know that they are each and both a wealth of information and a wealth of experience. But what you're going to find when I give them a moment to open their mouths is that they are a wealth of heart, a wealth of soul, a wealth of spirit, a wealth of humanity. And I love each of these women dearly, and I respect both of them professionally. We're colleagues and we're friends, and I can't wait for you all to receive so much wisdom from each of them. So welcome, Cindy. Welcome, Susanna. Cindy, you want to just start?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be in conversation with both of you.
Yeah, excellent. And Susanna, hi, welcome.
Yes, and so I'm representing the West Coast, and I'm so happy to be with you both, my soul sisters. And I should also add in that I'm a cat mama. So I know that you have your beautiful, amazing dogs, and I have my two delicious feline friends.
And I should add in that I'm now a cat mama advocate because Will has a cat, George. And so now I have a dog and a cat. So I bridge between us. You know, our children are responsible for expanding our worlds in ways that we never would have anticipated. So let's just start right there. Each of you is in the similar position of raising children with disabilities, special needs, however you want to language that. Some of the audience here, my thrivers, are parents. Most are women. I think whether or not you are a parent, whether or not you happen to be raising a child that is neurodiverse, has special needs, or you're a parent of multiple children, young children, I think what we all share is that as women, it is challenging for us to give ourselves permission to care for ourselves, to thrive, to flourish. Not a day goes by that I don't also hear a woman say, I'm doing all this work on myself, I'm into personal growth, and yet I still feel so alone, so lonely, like an island, disconnected. So let's just start right there. I'll just start with you again, Cindy, and we'll go around. Cindy, what has your experience been around self-care, soul care, giving yourself this permission? Like, what happened in your life? How did you get here? What brought you here?
Yeah. Um, it's been a process. It's been a journey. It has been a process. And when you were speaking, Susie, about this feeling of being alone or the feeling of responsibility or guilt, that I've never met a mother who doesn't relate to that word in some way. I think some of the aloneness and the guilt is so connected. And I think being a parent of any child, there is this inherent sense of responsibility. And then when you have a child who has needs upon needs upon needs, that sense of responsibility is even greater. And I think immersing ourselves in that responsibility, I can speak for myself, removed me from this ability to be for myself. Because it was as if I just got sucked into the vacuum of all that I needed to do for my daughter, Mira, as if I was the only one who could do everything for Mira. And so all the other sort of supports in the world sort of fades away. And so the ability to see how can I be for me became just impossible to see. And it has taken years to sort of, I used to speak about this backpack of anxiety or just this heavy invisible backpack. And it was in undoing that and untangling the guilt and really believing that I needed to take care of me in order to take care of Mira. And I can speak so honestly now as a woman in my mid 50s with various diagnoses that, as I have learned more about, come from people pleasers, from being people pleasers, and the sense of responsibility that has taken a toll on my immune system. So I sort of feel like it's been waking me up in hard ways, but I feel like with every year or every new health challenge is a stronger message of, okay, there is nothing more important to me than to take care of myself now. And if I could share anything with any new mother with a child with disabilities, it's, oh my gosh, if I could have heard that message earlier, it would have made a difference. At the same time, I don't think I wouldn't change anything per se, but I just see more clearly how taking care of myself, as you have said too, is like the furthest thing from selfishness, because the ripple into my own connection to Mira, to my boys, to my husband, and to me and to others becomes that much freer when I become the person to take care of first.
It's so interesting. And this is why I'm obsessed with even the title, Permission to Thrive. I'm just obsessed with women having been given a message for generations that say taking care of ourselves is selfish. And you've said so much. There's two things I really want to highlight, and then we'll jump over to you, Susanna. The two things I really want to highlight, number one, is before we actually started recording, for those of you listening, we each set intentions of how did we want this episode to be of service. And one of the things that you said, Cindy, you used the word humanity. And when I'm listening to you speak and I'm hearing you say you became a mother, and then all of a sudden, it's like the support that you needed, like you evaporated. And your whole external focus was on Mira. And I think whether you're a parent or not listening, we as women, we're born, we're open-hearted, we're flourishing, we're blossoming. And then we hear this message that taking care of ourselves is selfish. And we need to be so externally oriented and please others and be nice. And if we do put ourselves on the map, it's selfish. And I know that everyone listening has heard some version. We all know the cliche, put your oxygen mask on first. But it fascinates me to this day of the utter power that culture has had on generations of women. We're all very intelligent women here, both speaking and listening, those of you listening, and yet we've been very indoctrinated. So I really want to dive into this because I know that there are women listening going, I want to, but I just can't because I feel guilty because I can only see how much. So thank you for opening such an important conversation. And then Susanna, please chime in, tell us either your own journey to getting here.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of having a full circle moment actually, because I was just doing the math in my head, and math is not my strong suit, but I literally have been working with you, Suze, for almost half of my life. So 23 years now, I'm 50. I've been working with you for 23 years. Okay. And so I've been a mother for 18 of those 23 years. And so I feel like there was this absolute intervention from the universe for me to get 5 glorious years of soul care, soul psychology, just in order to prepare me to be the parent I was going to be for Arizona, my daughter, who again is now 18, a legal adult, as she likes to remind me. And, I laugh about this all the time, but I remember at my baby shower, I handed out to all of my guests who came, all of my girlfriends, all of my family members. And I was just like, guys, I just want you to know that I am so invested in my own care. I'm so invested. I had this list of things that sort of, filled my heart. And one of the things was working with Suzi. I had that on my list and I handed something out to every person who came. It was like part of my goodie bag. Okay. And everyone told me later that they were like, ha 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 ha. Susanna just is so, who does she think she is? Like, must be nice. Right. And they were kind of telling me in sort of like a joking manner of, yeah, wow. Yeah, good luck with that because you're about to be a mom. And I remember, being thrust into motherhood and, having this child who commanded so much attention from, second number one coming into this earth with her presence and her needs and her unmet needs. And I right away was like, yeah, maybe they were right. Maybe they were right because what is revered in this culture, right? That let's struggle, let's sort of suffer. We don't need help. Nope, nope, nope. We do it all without help. And so those sessions with Suzi as a new mother, I probably would not be here had it not been for those sessions. And I am saying that with full transparency and vulnerability because it was every second of every day was a struggle, surviving every second of every day. And so I remember during those early days, I would say, but Suze, I can't access all of these things because now look what I have to be responsible for. And Susie just would say to me, okay, Susanna, and especially now, you lean in to the soul care.
Yeah. And also, before we recorded, when we were setting our intentions, we said, if we can touch just one woman, and when I'm hearing you speak, Susanna, just speaking to just that one woman out there who is going to hear this and say, it's an insult to my intelligence to think that I need to deprive myself in order to be more full for those who actually really do need me. It's actually an insult. We could have a whole episode on the toxic patriarchy, but this conversation that we're speaking about comes and originates from this misperception of lack. And we have been told as women that there's not enough, and that there's not enough time, support, energy, consciousness, confidence for you to take care of yourself first. And I want to say to everyone listening first, because I share with both of you in full transparency, when my son was young, I didn't like how I was showing up to him. And I didn't like the me that was showing up. And it became very clear very early on for me. And that's why I wrote my book. It became very clear to me that I'm not going to show up as the woman that I want to show up as. I knew there was a vision of me inside of me. And if I didn't take care of myself, how would I show up as a full, inspired individual from a state of depletion? And so I say it is a very big act of courage to start really saying, I'm going to put myself on the map. I am going to take care of myself because I feel like an island right now. I feel depleted right now. I feel overwhelmed right now. I feel exhausted right now. And we're not good for anyone else from that state. And so for everyone listening, for each one of us, it may look different. For you listening, it may be that you need to call someone and ask for some support. Like Susanna was referencing, we are so taught as women to be all things for all people, and that we're, quote, better when we can do it all ourselves. We receive all the accolades from culture. Oh my gosh, look at what she does. Cindy has 3 kids, and look what we are given so many accolades for how much we martyr ourselves. And it's going to take the first group of women to say, I don't want those accolades. I don't want the awards for how much I martyr myself. I don't want the award for how disconnected and overwhelmed and exhausted I feel and still I show up. I want to live this one precious life that I have with these children. Your children have extensive needs. This is for any woman on planet Earth. I want to live the life that I have right now, feeding myself with the full intelligence knowledge that the more I give to myself, it's like you said, Cindy, it's the farthest thing from selfish. It's the farthest. Imagine yourself, everyone listening right now, just imagine if you could take yourself from a state of depletion to a state of overflow. Who would you be? If you could take yourself now, it's going to take calling, asking for assistance, saying no to some things, having boundaries. It's going to require of us to grow and transform and evolve and to let go of some things and to grow into some things. And yet, and still, when you take that on, you show up as a different individual. And I think that's what all three of us are saying. I can see how each one of us is different today than we were yesterday, a year ago, 5 years ago. So anything else that you, Cindy, maybe want to add here? And then we'll move on to maybe a different conversation. You had mentioned guilt.
Yeah, well, so I don't think I'd really thought about it this way until right now, but I'm going back to when Mira, the first 4 weeks that she lived in the ICU. And I'm looking at like what we take on from the patriarchy, what we take on from culture that is so ingrained that we're fighting against. And I just see so clearly, like, yes, that was there. And that was a really strong voice. And yet my time with Mira in the NICU was calling me to, like, the lesson from the universe was there about the soul connection. And I felt, without having the language, then to express it, that's exactly what I felt like in the way that I described in my book. Like when I was not with Mira, I was in this place of fear about who she was, who I was. But when I was with her, it was just soul to soul connection. But what I hadn't thought about until now was that those 4 weeks when she was in the hospital, all of the care of Mira and the doing was provided by the nurses and the doctors. That my job and what I did was simply show up and be with her. And that's all she needed from me. No one was going to let me touch the tubes. No one was going to let me move stickers, do an EEG, give her medications, any of that. Like, that was not in my wheelhouse. All she needed from me was to show up. And I think we get this message if we listen. That's what our kids from the earliest ages are telling us. So it's just like that message is there as well. But because of the years of understanding that we are supposed to be selfless, and I think I've said to my kids too, like, when I leave this world, the last thing I want people to say about me was that she put everybody above herself. And that is so valued when somebody passes and we say, she always put others first. And I now see that in a way of like, that is the last thing that I want people to say about me. But I just hadn't thought about those 4 weeks where the doing was, and of course, yes, there were things I had to do, but this message of all I need you to be is my mom. Like,
Yes.
And she was showing me that from day one.
Yes, and I think what you're saying is so important, and that's why I've reframed this phrase of self-care and I elevate it to soul care. Because Mira was saying to you, soul to soul, I'm interested in connecting with your being.
Yes.
And I think this is such an important reframe and paradigm shift because, of course, we have many to-dos and many to-do lists. And as my husband Jamie says, does anybody ever get to the end of a to-do list? So the to-dos will always be there. That is not in question. But the question is, how do you come to your to-do list? Do you come to your to-do list already exhausted, or do you come to your to-do list full? And the way that you're going to up your needle towards full is to say that your children or your spouse or your boss or your girlfriend, what they are looking to you first is the connection. They want to feel seen by you. They want to feel connected. Nobody has a girlfriend who doesn't see them or value them. We take it for granted that it's the qualities of being. And when you reference being at the end of your life, and I personally love referencing that I am going to get to the end of my life, it helps me to live each day more richly, because when I get to the end of my life, I agree with you. I want to look back at my own life and say, I'm so proud of the way I took care of myself, because I know that the better I took care of myself meant the people I did touch, I touched in a real rich way. The quality of my relationships is rich to the degree that the quality of my inner relationship is rich. So I'll ping it over to you, Susanna. Jump right on in.
Yeah, no, I love this conversation so much. It's always exactly what I need right now, too. And so I just feel like, yes, 1000% agree with you both in terms of this reflecting back over our lifetime. And I always sort of take myself there too. It's such a trigger for me. I don't know about you guys, but it's such a trigger for me when people tell me, oh, Susanna, you're such a good mom because of all of the things that I am doing and juggling. By the way, it always has to do with doing and juggling and trying to and being all over the place. That is when I get, like you said, that's when people want to give me my flowers, right? Susanna, what you're doing is the best work. And I'm like, yeah, I am like about to pass out in 2 seconds. This is not my best work. This is not what's great for me. And so I just love this reminder that it is not an act of entitlement, that we are able to have the opportunity to really, really, really care for our souls and our beings and find our joy. And I unfortunately, find myself so sucked into that realm often of, yeah, but I want people to like me too. I do. Speaking of people pleasing, I want people to think that I'm a good mom. But I don't want them to think that because, I'm doing all of these things. It is a constant conscious decision every minute of every day. I saw this thing on Instagram the other day where someone was saying, you only live once, right? And the person was saying, actually, you only die once. You live every single day. Right. And so that just sort of struck a chord with me because I was like, yeah, you know what? The last 5 minutes, I wasn't able to show up, but I have 5 more minutes in front of me, or hopefully, God willing, 5 more hours, 5 more years, 5 more decades. Right. And so I think of that often in terms of when I am in the day, in the trenches, in the muck, parenting and just being with Arizona.
Yeah, and I appreciate your authenticity, because I think you speak for probably every woman listening is, of course, I want this, and yet I feel very conflicted. I want the soul connection and I want to live from that expanded place, but I do want people to like me and I do want to be acknowledged. And it does feel so uncomfortable to take those first steps and risk the judgment of like, oh, who does she think she is? And oh, she's all that, or whatever it is that is your own roadblock to your own permission to thrive in your own both inner and outer worlds. And I certainly see with my clients, with students, is that we're indoctrinated in this world to think that our value comes from our doing. And to really shift that paradigm to say, again, Cindy, you referenced being at the end of our lives. I think for everyone listening in this moment, if we all take a sober moment and we each get real that one day we're all passing over, and we will see so clearly in that moment that it is our being that gave us value, nothing that we did. And it is not to say that we don't want to do great things while we're here, but we want the doing to come from the wholeness, the worthiness, the being of us, the soul of us, the spirit. We want that to be feeding the things that we do. And we don't want to get to the end of our lives and feel that the relationships that we were in were topsoil because we were having to just check off the boxes. I know for me early on, parenting Will, from my own relationship with my mom, feeling rather disconnected and not feeling emotionally connected, my connection with him was really important to me. And our connection with each other was really important to me. And so I can look back and see, oh, the feelings that I had of disconnection from my own mom were a godsend because it had me early on recognize that the relationship of being to being, soul to soul, was really important to me in my relationship with him. I always say connection was my highest parenting value. And so it really had me keep that at the forefront of my mind. And you referenced, Cindy, when those first 4 days when you were in the ICU, that you really recognized that you were having a soul to soul relationship with Mira. And I think that this is what everyone really wants, whether you're a parent listening, whether you're in a relationship, whether you have a sibling. I think what all of us want while we're on earth is to experience those soulful, at least anybody listening to this podcast wants soulful, deep, intimate connections with each other. So can you speak to that, Cindy, in any way that you in your own personal life have shifted more, how Mira brought that into your life, anything that speaks to this?
Yeah. So it was 4 weeks in the ICU.
That's what I meant. Did I not say that?
4 days. That's
Oh,
okay.
excuse me.
That's okay. Whatever
4
time
weeks.
it was,
Yeah,
it was all a
excuse
blur.
me.
It was all a blur.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
No, 4 weeks.
in listening, I think honestly, Mira, of course, like all my kids aren't my teachers. Mira, from that time too, as I said, like when I would just show up with her, I saw her as a complete being. And when I was away from her, that's when the fears and all of the thoughts of who she would be, who I would be, who I didn't know I was at that, being a parent to her, et cetera. I have learned with her, through her, someone who in some ways can't be indoctrinated in the same way that we have all been, because she's not going to college. There are so many boxes that she will not check off, right? She's not going to get married. She is not going to have children. She's not going to college. She did go to prom. She did go to school, but she doesn't care. Like, it so doesn't impact who she is. And then just another example of this, like one of her favorite things to do is to go to a cafe, be it Starbucks or Tate, which is, I think, only here on the East Coast. Like, she loves going. And people often ask me, what do you think it is about going to Starbucks that she likes so much? Is it the food? And I said, I don't think it has anything to do with the food. I think it's two things. One, she loves being out and about and to be out in the community. But I also know that when we are together, that we are just together, right? We are not doing anything. It's not about the eating. It's not about the drinking. It's that she has me 100% and I am engaged with her. There's no distracting of the other things that I have to do. It is just time together. And of course, she thrives on that. And that's when I feel so incredibly connected to her. So I look at all the things that she is not able to do, and I look at her being, and she is radiant beyond radiant. And she touches that in other people. She brings the playfulness that I think if she were not Mira, I may have closed down long ago, but like dancing in our kitchen, like that still is a big part of our lives because she demands it.
This is brilliant. This is the takeaway of all takeaways. And I know Susanna can really speak to this much better even than I can. So I'll ping it to you in a moment. But I will say, Cindy, this is the takeaway because Mira, exactly what you're saying, she doesn't even have any kind of conditioning that says, I even need to check these boxes. She is free. She's liberated. She is unencumbered. And so she has stayed connected to her authentic self, her joy, her laughter. And anyone who has had the pleasure of getting to hear her sing or see a picture of her, you cannot help look at Mira without your heart just expanding in joy. And so what you're saying is what every one of us on planet Earth is looking for in our lifetime, is to free ourselves of the way that we encumber ourselves and rob ourselves of our own innate joy and authenticity. And she offers that. And if, again, one person listening feels right now more joyful, more connected to your authentic self, more saying F it to whatever box I've been chasing after right now, again, it's not to say there's anything wrong with the boxes, but to check them off, to think that it's going to bring us something, robs us of living our life from the soul level, from the spiritual level, from the heart level, and it robs the whole reason we're on earth. So that's a takeaway, Susanna. I know you can add to this because Arizona is so similar to Mira because Arizona's not having it. She's not having the boxes.
Yeah, no, and I get in the way. I'm just realizing that I often get in the way. Here she is just trying to express herself unabashedly, unfiltered, so authentically herself. And I find myself so often having these reactions or trying to intervene because we're in public, because maybe the external world around us is going to have a little bit of a side eye, or my ego might feel uncomfortable about someone maybe potentially questioning my parenthood, my parenting methodology. But it's so beautiful to be reminded that they just want our presence. And Cindy, it's so, so relatable what you're saying in terms of the times that I feel so connected, the times that Arizona is actually the most calm and the most regulated. The anxiety, this diagnosis that she has, is just from all of the other external stuff that I am carrying too. But like, for example, yesterday I had a client, it was Sunday, but we had time in the afternoon. Arizona, what should we do today? Let's have a plan. Let's have an adventure. And she was like, you know what, Mama? Let's go look at some open houses. It's one of our fun favorite things to do. We're not in the market for a house, but it's just going to visualize and look at different spaces. And then Arizona likes to give a little tour of what she's seeing. And we had the best, best, best time. And it was maybe like an hour and a half of the entire day, but we both came home and we felt so full. And I was like, Arizona, I'm going to go read my book. She was like, I'm going to go listen to my music. So because we had that connecting time, the rest of the evening was pretty chill. You know what I mean? It was pretty chill. Yeah.
Well, I love what you're saying. You're so authentic. You're so transparent. I so value that. And I think that everyone listening is going to value that. So if I can share for a moment, and you just interrupt me if I'm oversharing about your life, but you said some really important things that I think we can all relate to as women. One is how you get sidetracked because of being in public with Arizona. It could be for someone listening, you get sidetracked because we're all taught how to present ourselves in public, the presentation on Instagram, the presentation of us is so valued in culture. And I know in your family of origin, that's something that you also work with. And so why I wanted to bring this up so specifically is because everyone listening, when you hear Susanna say, these are the things that often get in my way of deeply connecting with my daughter, it's my conditioning of being self-conscious of how she may appear in person or in public, excuse me. And that reflects the way you were brought up to have how you present be really important. So of course, you were gifted the perfect daughter to assist you to heal and transform and evolve. But the dots that I'm trying to connect to anyone listening is that when you're hearing these two beautiful women speak, you can look at your own life and ask, how do I get in my own way of living this soulfully connected life? So we all have this similar intention. We've referenced being at the end of our lives. At the end of our lives, we're going to look back and really have wanted to have lived a soulful life while we were here. And we can ask ourselves without judging ourselves, but we can just ask ourselves, how do I get in my own way? And what you're suggesting, Susanna, is some of the ways you get in your own way is that you become aware, oh, I care, I get self-conscious. And by becoming aware of your own journey in life and the context, the ways that we get in our own way, they have a larger context. There's no accident. And so as you're listening to the sharing, you can begin to ask yourself, how do I get in my own way? And how am I, because I'm listening today, and there are no accidents, if you are listening today and you are hearing Susanna say, I get in my own way by XYZ, and now you are asking yourself, how do I get in my way? That is your bridge to your own transformation. Once you can see and have the awareness of how you're getting in your own way, that is then the bridge to your freedom and transformation. So in our soul psychology, our soul care community, we have a phrase, and I'm going to say it to you, Susanna, but we have a phrase, it's so understandable. And so I share what I shared about you to say to everyone listening, knowing Susanna and that she was raised, that it was very important how you present yourself. And we're all raised and conditioned as women, how we present ourselves is so important. It's so understandable that you would feel self-conscious in public. It's so understandable. And so I just ping it to either you or Cindy. Have you found the journey of self-compassion to be important? If so, how important? What could you offer to someone listening as we're wrapping up? I think self-compassion is an important ingredient to put into this stew.
Oh, maybe the most important ingredient to put into this stew. I'm so glad you said it, Suzi, because I was going to bring it up, and listening to you, Susanna. I think as we get in our own way, I mean, I'm thinking of, when we're out in public and her bib is covered with food, and I'm wondering if people are judging us for that. There's a doctor, Mira's orthopedist, who has done 2 of her surgeries, who I dread making another appointment with him. In fact, I will push Mark to go because I'm so concerned that he is going to judge me for not doing enough, because Mira will likely need another surgery. And so, yes, so getting to the self-compassion. So one, I just want to say, yes, I see how I still, as much as I know and try to embody and practice, it's not that the indoctrination goes away. And so therefore, that's where that piece of self-compassion becomes the most important piece, because it is so understandable that I would feel that way because ... And it is that, and Suzi, this is purely from your work that I have taken in having the practice of compassion for that piece where I get in my own way, because to judge it is not what has served me. And so to welcome it and to hold it in the language of it's so understandable and let it fall gently, then I'm able to say, okay, so what do I want to do about this? How do I want to respond? And what do I need? What did I need? What do I need? So I don't feel there is anything more important in making this leap, this transformation than the self-compassion. I just think that is
Thank you.
tops.
Thank you. And it reminds me of our pre-recording intentions again when you said the quality of humanity. And I think of every woman out there listening, every man out there, anyone listening, whether you are parents of special needs children, young children, or just looking to have a better career path or relationship with your spouse or your mother-in-law.
Caring for elderly, caring for aging parents. I think
Yes, exactly. There's so much humanity here that I hope you can feel for yourself listening, that we are each and all just trying to do the best we can in a world that sometimes can feel stacked against us. We're just inundated, as we've been speaking and sharing about what's valued in our outer culture. And we aren't inundated, at least in this moment, with these soul connections and this way of being and living. And so I feel so much humanity when I think of you, Cindy, and you, Susanna, and every one of you listening who's just literally trying to do the best you can, both in your own world right now, but also with the trajectory and context of where you came from and the healing and personal growth that is being called for from within you. So this phrase I just offer everyone, it is so understandable right where you are right now, however you may be feeling like you're getting in your own way, whatever you feel like you haven't been able to tackle yet, wherever you are on your own journey, it is so understandable given the context of your world. And that will lead you into a softening of your heart. Can you imagine if all women everywhere had a softening of their heart towards ourselves?
Yeah.
We would have that softening of our heart towards our children, this soul to soul connection we're all seeking, they're seeking from us. So jump in, Susanna.
No, I mean, I just, your voice is always in my head, right? So I had a really, I still have a very, very hard time conjuring up compassion for myself. To me, I have to actually fake it till I make it kind of thing. Like I have to, okay, it's time. Yes, I need to have, yes, it's so understandable, Susanna. And honestly, what gets me to that space the quickest is I imagine I'm on a session with Suzi, and she's saying to me, because over all of these years that we've been working together, it is always an instant, oh, Susanna, oh, like just so we take a pause, like you keep me in that moment. And so I'm able to then take a pause for myself and just really feel in that moment. It is so understandable.
Yeah.
It is
And it's
so understandable.
I'm so obsessed with this because our culture is so void of this. So I hear, and I'm sure the two of you do daily with your clients, I hear every day, I want to feel compassion for myself, but I have no idea how to start, what it feels like, what it sounds like. And so what you're saying, Susanna, is I am obsessed with it because I always say it's the tone that makes the music. And so I do slow us down. And it's actually when you say you have my voice in your head, I just feel so humbled hearing that, just so humbled hearing that, because if I or any one of us can be any kind of voice to help another woman get connected to that place of compassion and humanity within them. So what you're saying, Susanna, is that we could be in the middle of a session, we could be in the middle of a conversation, and we can slow it down And you can hear the timbre of my voice, the tone of my voice, the moving from the head into the heart, and learning the language of the heart and the energy of the heart and the vibration of the heart. It's a very different vibration than the vibration of the head. And the head and the mind is very important. We need the head and the mind. So nothing against the mind. And when the mind is infused with the energy of the heart and the soft, connected intimacy, the heart seeks connection. And so what you're saying is that when we slow ourselves down, be it in a session, be it in a conversation with our child. I just had something with Will. He's wanting to move into his own apartment. And I was sharing with him the other day, you know, my process is slower than yours. And I'm feeling some anxiety about the thought of this. And I want to be in this conversation, and I will be in this conversation. But what I know for myself is to be in this conversation in an additive way, in a way that I want to show up. I need to slow this conversation down because I'm feeling anxious right now. And it's very understandable that I would be feeling anxious right now because I want to say yes to you. I want to say yes, and I may need to say no, and I need to weigh this out, and I may need to have boundaries. And so as I'm slowing down, it's A, knowing to slow down, and B, it's the timbre, it's the tone, it's the practice of moving from my head into my heart and saying, it's so understandable that I would need a minute to process this. It's so understandable. And so if there's one takeaway for everyone listening today, how can you apply, how can you reference what Suzanne is saying and feel the feeling of slowing down and allowing yourself to move from the constriction of the mind to the expansion of the heart? Any last words, anything that comes to you, Cindy, like, I don't want to finish this episode without offering, I want every woman to hear this.
Yeah. And yes, so there's something really, really important. And I'm saying it as much for me as for anybody else who's listening. And I'm hearing it as I'm listening to both of you speak as well. Susanna, when you were saying that it's Suzi's voice that's what helps, which of course that makes so much sense. And she's offering you the experience and she's offering the language. But I think what's so important for us all to know is that what you are touching on, Suzi, when you say those words, when you provide the space to slow down, it is activating something already within us.
Yes.
And I feel like that's the piece that is so important. It's that we just have to learn how to access what is already there, because we all have that ability. It's in us. And yes, it's all of us at times needing it to be provided from the outside, but it's just learning how to access something that is already inside us. So
exactly. Our culture is void of, it's as if you're saying the French language is inside of us, but we've been raised speaking gibberish.
Yeah.
And so when I reflect back, well, this is the softness of the French language. This is what the French language sounds like, even though we've been raised in a language of gibberish. Then exactly what happens that you're speaking of, the person that I'm speaking to, it activates, it awakens something that is natural to us, is organic to us, is already encoded within us. It's a homecoming to ourselves. It's a coming home to ourselves. And that is what the greatest of therapies do, the greatest of girlfriends do, when we can move away from the need or the desire to fix and recognize there's nothing, quote, wrong. And we can simply reflect back to someone from a place of the heart, then it activates a remembrance inside of them. So thank you so much. That's such an important takeaway for everyone, is that we're not inputting something that isn't already within you. This is our first language. Our first language is compassion. We've all heard that saying, hate is learned. Judgment is learned. You don't stare at a 3-year-old baby and think for a moment they are judging themselves. They are embodied in compassion and light and joy and wholeness and authenticity. And the rest is learned from a culture of gibberish, but it's learned. And so what we're saying is that we're reactivating something that has simply gone dormant, that has simply gone to sleep, and we don't hear it in our culture. So some of us have to be the first ones to remind each other. So I thank you. Very important point. Anything for you, Susanna, that you would like to offer as we close?
Yeah. And I would just say to all of our fellow disability mamas who might be listening out there, I will say that it was so jarring for me to realize that this was going to be my path. And I also I know that I really would have become so numb to life, so numb to this life. I would have been a raging tiger mom for certain without, well, maybe not,
Wow.
because I had Suzi's work with me, but I
Yeah.
just feel like at every juncture, every challenging moment, every tough time, every disappointment, I feel like, yes, this is just another opportunity for me to be awake to this life. And so I know it sometimes feels hard to access as an extreme caregiver sometimes, but I will say it has been the greatest gift for my own transformation without
Yeah.
question.
And you reference something that is so important, this word and process of grief. And I think certainly for anyone who is raising children with any sort of additional needs, special, unique needs, but for all of us, I think what's in common is that we all have a picture of the life that we thought we'd be living. And life hands us the picture of the life we're meant to live. And you're speaking to that so poignantly by saying you have enough wisdom to see that left to your own devices of the fantasy life that you thought you wanted to live, you would have gone down a certain kind of a path. But honestly, this universe, if it's one thing, it is for us. And sometimes it's for us in the most distasteful of ways at first. And so I love that you're using the word grief, because for any of you listening who are on that bridge and you're crossing from the life that you thought you would be living right now into the life that you actually are living right now, please, it is so understandable that you would be going through a process, and the grieving process involves anger, sometimes rage, sometimes depression, sometimes intense big feelings and emotions, until we get to the place of acceptance. And I would offer, if this is you listening, do yourself a favor and do not bypass one moment of your process. And you may choose to reach out to myself or one of these two brilliant coaches. All of Susanna's information, all of Cindy's information is in the show notes. So you may reach out to them to work one-on-one with them, or in one of their groups, or one-on-one with me or one of my groups. Please do yourself a favor and learn how to be present with all of the different messy, oh my gosh, we could have some conversations about embracing the messy. I have to have a part 2. If you're in the messy part, remember the soul of you is so infinite, it's large enough. The messy doesn't scare your soul. Give yourself that favor of processing what you're moving through, because when we process something well, we won't carry it into our tomorrows. And if you are carrying something from your yesterdays, it just means there's something to be processed. That's all it means. It just means there is value that you haven't mined yet. There are diamonds in there, but it feels heavy like coal right now. And so the word grief, the fact that we're all processing, and take your time with the process. There's no end goal. There's no end place to be. So I really appreciate, obviously, anybody that's known me for 5 minutes knows I don't run far from the messy. Michael Beckwith, on one of my podcast episodes, he was saying when a seed is planted and a seed sprouts underground first, when the seed sprouts, it's very messy. We all know the analogy of birth. Birth is messy, childbirth is messy. But this idea that under the ground, we don't see the messy, but the messy is such an essential part of the fertilizing of the soil. So I thank you for that. And I just cannot thank you both. I love being in conversation. You're each a wealth of experience. For everyone listening, they are each coaches in their own right with thriving practices and books. So please look up their books. I've read both of their books cover to cover. They're so relatable. Every paragraph you will find yourself, whether you are a parent, whether you're a parent with children with disabilities, you will find yourself on every page of these books. They're very transformative. And I just have the utmost love and respect for each and both of you. So thank you. And here's to next time already.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Suze.
Yeah, my pleasure. And for any of you listening, if you have literally received a takeaway, we would all be so grateful if you would pass this on to another woman. I can't imagine anything that would fill us more than thinking that there's another woman in your life that you've passed this on to that might be thriving because you took the time to pass this on. And if you liked both of these women, please leave a review and share with the world how much you got from Susanna and Cindy. It would mean so much to us, and it would help other women out there who might be hungry, who might be feeling alone, who might be starving for this message today. So much love, everyone. Give yourself permission to thrive this week, and see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening. If there was something in this conversation that spoke to you, we'd so appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with women and mothers you know, because you are here to thrive. See you next time.